Welcome everybody to another edition of our wonderful podcast. My name is Chris Mills. I'm a managing director at Citysoft, one of those lovely boutique consultants based in London, looking after everything wealth and asset management. And I'm joined on their very long sofa over here by Simon Swords and Andrew White. Simon, since you are an expert at this, can I ask you to introduce yourself first, please, and then to Andrew in a moment?
I was going to say, because you're furthest away.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hi, I am Simon Swords, and I'm the founder and managing director of Fundapedia, and also, not that I represent in this capacity, just in case, but also a senior advisor to the IA Engine, which is a fintech accelerator for the asset management side.
Excellent. Andrew.
My name is Andrew Patrick White. I'm founder and CEO of a company called FundApps. I'm probably one of the first reg techs out there before it was called reg tech. So we're a London-based compliance as a service company with offices in New York and Singapore.
Fantastic. I'm so very glad that you mentioned your middle name, because there's been times at this preparation where I was convinced that I would talk to you as Patrick, but now, of course, now we can all share our middle. Mine's Sally, my middle name. If ever
nice to meet you, Sally.
We want to go through that. But I was told, I think last time I started this with an awful limerick.
It was horrendous.
Awful. It was horrendous, but it was a ChatGPT limerick, so I'm going to take no responsibility. So I've got a joke or two that that I think I'll tell you. But you know the conspiracy theory about the moon being made out of cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was actually started by the Illuminati. Was that any better than the limerick? I don't know.
It's similar ballpark.
Similar ballpark. Excellent.
Yeah,
right. Okay. Well, there's a standard at which I'm trying to achieve. But anyway,
you're there.
So thank you, gentlemen. I think I have some notes in front of me, some nice hearty questions. It seems always sensible to start at the beginning. I think what I'd like to do is to talk to Andrew a little bit at the beginning and dig into that. We know a bit about Simon already, but then we'll tackle and have some questions for everyone. So that's, and then we'll end up with some wonderful questions at the end just to tie everything up. So let's, hopefully I can get the two of you, maybe even to have an argument or two. We'll see.
Not a problem.
Excellent. We'll see how that works. No fisticuffs though. You've got to stay exactly as you are. So I guess we're talking very much today about technology impact in the wealth and asset management industry. I'm not going to get into definitions, buy side, etc., asset owners, services, etc. I think that FundApps, every one of us has had a long journey and a long career. What, Andrew? What do you think your first steps were in your wealth and asset management journey? Where do you think it started? How do you?
It probably started when I couldn't get a job in Ireland in the 90s, because Ireland was that backwater of employment post-EU. So I had to go to Switzerland to get a job, and I ended up making software for private banks. And it was really cool software that wouldn't exist anymore when we talk about AI and all the progress of technology. Basically, we would scan in correspondence from customers to private banks into a big old archival machine.
Yeah.
And then you could use a search screen to find the letters. So basically it was an email inbox nowadays. So that was really high tech in the mid 90s. So that was, as I said, private banking. I spent a lot of time in Zurich. And then as a young man, Switzerland's lovely, but I got quite bored. So I moved to Frankfurt, which for a lot of people sounds even more boring, but actually Frankfurt's pretty cool. So I got into asset management in Frankfurt, and I started working for a consulting company that wanted to get into tech. And
yes.
The then CEO asked me, would I build a rules engine for him? And I said, as a eager 27-year-old, sure, I'll build a rules engine for you. What rules do we need to do? And that rules engine went on to become probably one of the most famous post-trade rules engines, called MiG-21. And that was kind of, I think, the start of my journey properly into the space.
Excellent. Well, we may come onto that sort of that overlap in our histories where, as you said, one of the leading compliance engines. I used to work for the other one, so we can have that fight later on. Interesting. So one of the questions I think, you started that in what, 2008? Just sort of ahead of is it the GFC, the Global Financial Crisis? I hate these little acronyms, but I think I remember that one. So, was that a good idea? Was that the right time?
It was 2010. I traveled for a year and then came back. But I mean, I'd read somewhere that Microsoft was set up during the oil crisis, and that kind of gave me hope, thinking, oh, sure, in downturns, you've got a chance. I didn't really think about it in classic style. It was just seemed like a good idea at the time. And classically, if you were to have an Excel sheet of pros and cons, you probably would have sat there for another year thinking about it, and the timing's wrong. But as it was, it just seemed like technology was becoming really embedded in our daily lives. I think the real turning point was when my mother got an iPhone or an iPod, and I was like, "Ooh, this! You could download apps." This was still early days, 2008, 2009.
So your mother was an early adopter.
She
of
was an
technology
early
than yourself.
adopter,
Okay.
yeah, and she was installing apps and doing that and sending emails. I'm like, why does my mother have all this technology on her little phone, and all these banks are still using clunky old COBOL systems, etc. So that was the kind of, hence the name FundApps. I was like, let's make apps that are easy to install. They're slightly bigger than your classic app, but that idea of easy to download, easy to install, easy to use was what I wanted to capitalize on.
I think it's the quote, isn't it? The Warren Buffett chap said, "When everyone else is scared, be brave."
When everybody else is overconfident, be cautious. Yeah.
And I think, post financial crisis or around that time, everyone's terrified, right? So if you can, I agree with you. I was the same because I started at a similar time, but I wasn't being brave. I was being ignorant. So it's like it's not like I did a load of research and went, oh, this is a perfect macroeconomic environment in which to start something.
Did you have any plan? No. I mean, just any sketch, or
I did write
is it
a
sort
business
of
plan.
one step in front of the other? Is that?
I wrote a business plan just to give myself a sense of having thought about but when I read it back now, it's an absolute work of fiction.
It's like RFPs, isn't it? It's always the decision's been made.
Yeah.
And, often decisions have been made. It's a retrospective view to justify
of it,
almost to make yourself feel better. Yeah, that was the right decision. Yes, it all does make sense.
But again, Andrew did the other thing as well, which I think is common amongst fintech. You work for a big company, you see the inefficiencies, you see the opportunities, and if you're that way inclined, if you're a solutions guy, you almost can't help but leave a big, whatever it might be, financial service, and go, oh man, there's a few ways I could improve on that.
Did you have a buddy?
No,
just you?
No, it was a single founder. So it sounds like I should get money from the government, single founder. But no, I was basically had the idea. I think luckily, or just my history was I studied computer science, so I was able to. I had the idea. I was able to code it, and then I literally put my suit on and started knocking on doors of of friends and family in the industry. So I was able to take the feedback and then iterate, change the code, go back again a few days later.
But isn't that really hard? I think there's a lot talked about nowadays about roles and responsibilities and skill sets and all of that. But as a computer scientist and as a founder, as somebody who knows how to build this, how comfortable were you putting the suit on and then knocking on doors? Because that's often can be a diametrically opposite skill.
Oh yeah, it's definitely.
What were you more scared of?
It's strange. I don't know. Maybe it's the old Irish gift of the gab and whatever. But I think as a founder, you also have the desire and the kind of idea you want to get out there. You want to explain it. You want to show it to people. So I think there was that kind of enthusiasm, which as a salesperson, your enthusiasm is your pay packet. But when you're the founder, it's the enthusiasm of proving that your idea has legs and it's valuable and so on. So I actually loved it, and it was ridiculously, in hindsight, hard. I mean, at the time, probably it was normal, but you were knocking on 50 doors a week. I wasn't actually going into Mayfair and knocking on doors, but emails and LinkedIn and whatever. And, you were getting 49. Are you crazy? You're how many people? I like the idea, but you're one person in Shoreditch in a shared office space. So to get that kind of first initial interest was tough. So yeah, it was a long slog at the beginning.
So what was the first?
The first was a small hedge fund that was like, yeah, that's exactly what we need, and I over the moon. And they went out of business 6 months later, so I was back to square one. So again, lessons learned.
Did you even know how much you're going to charge for it? Did you even have that in your, or was it? Oh, they want it.
I picked a number.
50 francs.
Yeah, I picked a number that was, obviously going to pay some of my bills.
What was your starting number? Do you mind sharing? I'll tell you mine.
It was £1,000 a month per fund,
nice.
And they had 3 funds, so it was £3,000 a month.
Nice. Mine was 40 grand a year. So,
3640, yeah.
Right,
There you go. See?
similar, but with 40, anything around 40, you're like, that's a salary.
Yeah,
at the
that was
time.
kind of my thinking as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could do this manually, but it's kind of a lot of work. So yeah,
Yeah.
shouldn't be that much
If I
money.
make no more sales,
Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
can
that
pay
definitely is
myself.
going to roughly pay the rent and a bit of living. And one of my co-founder who joined, who was doing the technical side after a while.
I was going to go back a little bit to the MiG-21 comment, and I can't remember this, and you might be able to tell me, why was it named after a Soviet supersonic jet that was created in 1959? Why was that the case?
So I love to explain that story because I had to do it many times, and it was my then CEO who was trying to come up with a pithy name, and he said, "Okay, well, it was around investment guidelines. It was monitoring, what the portfolio could. So investment guidelines, that was IG. So he's like, okay, we call it managing investment guidelines for the 21st century. So it was MiG-21." And that's how it came to be. I mean, obviously with a Russian fighter jet as well. But there was an amusing story that we were Frankfurt based. First few customers were in Germany. Next customers Luxembourg, Switzerland, etc. And we broke into the UK. But then at some stage, classical go global. We started to sell into America. And we did email a very smallish kind of Texan hedge fund. And we got back, basically, and I'm not going to do the Texan drawl, but I think you're selling your commie stuff in the wrong place. And I was like, mate, it's just a name. It's just, it's, but he was very, very irate that we'd named a product after a Russian fighter jet. Yes.
If he didn't like that, he would have hated our first one was called Alf. And you remember the old alien?
Yeah, of course.
So on the login screen, you had a photo of Alf with the brown, the brown guy. And it was advanced legal file system, but he would have said, get that alien out of here, potentially. I don't know, but it's an IT thing. People just want to name stuff. And
there's lots of them, aren't there? But
yeah.
MiG-21's pretty good, actually.
MiG-21's great. People, It's a great name. Yeah.
No, it is good.
There was also actually the two kind of that moment was fun, but I think it was 2 or 3 years afterwards, there was literally in the FT a headline, MiG-21 crashes in bank in India. And literally the Indian Air Force had an accident, and then a MiG-21 had actually flown into a bank. Oh, no. I think there was actually people killed as well, but the title was MiG-21 crashes in a bank. I was like, it's not the one. It's not our MiG-21.
No, right. Can we please have a clarification on that?
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
I guess there are always hazards, aren't there?
Sure, indeed.
And I'm just, you mentioned it as well earlier, or alluded to it, taking a break. I noticed, and I'm just picking on Andrew now, but you're a well-travelled man. Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, South America, etc. What exactly is wrong with the Northern Hemisphere?
I think I've done most of the Northern Hemisphere before my first semi-exit. So it was definitely Asia and that part of the world. But managed to get to 138 countries so far.
138.
So it's 58 to go.
Excellent. And what's top of that list?
To go or done?
To go. It's always about the future, remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Classic thing is I've been to the ones I really wanted to go to. There's a few random places that I like. Socotra off the coast of Yemen I really want to go to. I really want to go to Namibia. And probably North Korea is going to be one of those final places to go to, just to really tick the crazy box. I've heard it's things work slightly differently, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, slightly different culture.
Well, I've been to Namibia, so that's. But I haven't been to 157 others.
Yeah, no, it's a little hobby in the spare time,
Excellent. So what? And out of the ones that you visited, a hard question. Which one?
That's what we're here for.
Which one surprised you the most, or exceeded your expectations the most?
I can not answer that question by saying Belarus. Sorry, any Belarusian viewers, but that became the least interesting place.
Really?
It's quite very like the Soviet Union was in the 80s. There's no shops. There's no.
It's just stark.
There's just buildings everywhere, nothing to do really, and everybody seemed a bit sad. So that was below expectations if we're using annual review metaphors. Exceeds probably Japan. It's a classic one, but yeah, the way everything works there, the food, the people, it's just culturally different.
It's amazing.
While they might have Starbucks and McDonald's, they just tick differently to us, and there's a lot more ceremony, and people do a better job there. I have a lovely thing that I try and tell my team as a little bit of this is how you should do your job. Was in a department store. My wife bought some very cheap paper and pens and erasers for her niece and nephew, and we came to pay, and there was a guy packing, which is already like, we don't have that anymore in the West. So, all right, classically we did. No, we'll do it. You don't need to put that in. And he was like, insulted that we were not letting him do his job. But then he took, and it was maybe £10 worth of stuff, but he took it and he kind of assessed the situation and looked at the A4 block and the pens, and he started to do it. And he's like, okay, no, we're there doing the classic Western, mate. We got to run. But he literally spent about 2 minutes packing everything perfectly, putting the erasers and the pencils down, and then kind of did a little twiddle on the bag and handed it to us. And I'm just like, that guy, whether he loves it or just pretends to, but I have to think that he gets a kick out of doing that 10 times, 20 times a day, and he loved his job, and that mentality, how the Japanese see work. And there's a word called shikunen, which is about becoming a master of your work, and it's to do with their knives and furniture. We all probably know Jiro, the sushi maker. You have to spend 20 years just washing the rice before you can cook the rice, and then there are 10 years so you can do the fish. And I think it's a nice antidote to the view of what a lot of younger people have nowadays about careers, is like, after 1 year, first promotion, second year, next promotion, you kind of, unless you're working in a big company, in 7 years you've got my job. So I try and tell people, like, learn your craft, learn how to do this well, learn all the intricacies about the job, because life's going to be long. You're going to be working for a long time. But anyway, that was my little Japan story.
That's crazy. Yeah, there's an element of that diligence that's very attractive, right? Nice to be around.
It's humbling as well,
it's
isn't
humbling.
it?
These are masters of what they do, but they still care about it. Yeah, because whereas most people, when they get good at something, like, I can do this.
And I'm guilty of that, for the record, right? Oh, I've got that. What now? The business, one of my biggest mistakes at the start was not being that diligent, not thinking about things deeply, trying to be spread across. I actually started 3 businesses at once, because why not? Just a lack of focus, I think it's fair to say.
But it's hard though, isn't it? I think that there are lessons, and we come on to this in a moment. I think there are lessons that there are always opposite lessons all the time, aren't there? That intense focus and you miss wider opportunities.
True.
Keep your opportunities open and you don't focus so much. There is you have to seesaw, you have to zigzag, you have to change and adapt, don't you? But
it's a classic thing. I nearly, Simon knows, I love a good LinkedIn rant, but I'm not only on LinkedIn, I've also complained to LinkedIn that when anybody, I don't know if you know this or seen this, but when anybody changes job within a company on LinkedIn, it says congratulate Bob on their promotion. And it really makes this idea insidious that, if you change role within a company, it's a promotion.
Yeah.
And it might not be. It might be you're doing something completely different. And who cares? Like even the word promotion, it implies there's a final level that you can get to, and I'm an old gamer, job complete, boss level done. Next, move on to the next company. So yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? I think, and I think that about data, more is not necessarily better. Promotion is not necessarily. It's just, it can be different, can't it? That's the appreciation. So,
or not to mention the classic thing that I'd also try and reinforce with people is like, promotion sure comes with all of the fun stuff, like a greater salary and responsibility, which sounds great on the face of things, but as we probably all know, mature men, with responsibility comes great stress, and managing people, managing projects, managing bigger deals, whatever it may be. So this kind of yes, you do get paid more, but a lot more is expected of you as well. I think that's kind of lost on people, because it comes this video game of just promotions.
Well, since we're going that direction, I'll ask both of you, how you talked about being a founder and whether you had a grand plan or not, whether you had a plan on a page and 3 at a time, or whatever the story is. How have you evolved individually? How have you changed over time? How have you leveled up, dare I say it? How's that worked for you?
I haven't. I'm still a
I was literally about to say the same. Still winging it.
I'm still an idiot. Yeah, so the winging it comment I think Simon took to heart a few years ago, or would not took to heart, but was already like, okay, I'm not going too far wrong.
Yeah.
I think one of the things certainly is you do become a little bit more balanced, or maybe that for me because I was imbalanced to start with, but. You do realize when you're dealing, we're 135 people now and multiple nationalities, that, the initial kind of probably knee jerk or red energy, do that and no, that's wrong, or this is right. And let's face it, to be a founder, you have to have strong opinions. So everything else, techie background, whatever, but you cannot start a startup if you don't have strong opinions about what's right or wrong. Like a bit of apathy is never going to start a startup. So, people are generally look at the Zuckerbergs and whatever, like these are people that are, fairly clear about what they wanted to achieve. So I think that kind of calming that down a little bit and not kind of straight away, that's wrong, you should do this, and letting people come to decisions is certainly one of my learning things is, to be a good manager, a good CEO, certainly you have to let people have some breathing space to find out themselves and learn and to progress. Whereas, when you're early stage founder, you're just doing everything yourself, which is then hard to switch over. Yeah, and early, I'm sure you're the same, Simon. Early days, I was paying payroll, I was buying toilet paper, I was dealing with plumbers, I was coding, I was selling. So you support, and you're doing all these things, and then bit by bit, you have to retract slowly. Oh, I'm not doing support anymore. I'm not buying toilet paper anymore. Thank God.
Well, how do you retract? How do you come to that decision? Because it's easy to carry on, isn't it? Is it, or is it because are you forced to? External factors or personal real? I'm just interested.
There's multiple things going on in and around you that are forcing you to change the way you work all the time, right? Like you can't. Well, there's so many. I use a lot of psychology on myself to try and force. Like, so when you were talking about sales earlier on, I was like, it's not a no, it's just a step closer to a yes. Some of that's quite cheesy, right? I hate it. I wouldn't ever give I would never say that out loud to someone with a serious face and be like, come on, like Wolf on Wall Street. But internally, I can be.
I say
cheesy.
Not yet.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
You know what I mean?
Less cheesy, but
yeah,
the same
exactly
thing.
Right. And it's the same with the mentality around. Like, I had a really clever guy to me say to me, imagine that your time as CEO is worth £1,000 an hour, like to the business. What are you doing with that time? Really think about where you're adding value. And he's buying toilet roll, the value add. No, of course not. So there's that kind of push or pull, whatever you want to call it. And then there's, not wanting to do that stuff anymore because you start to realize where you're good and where you add value. And I'm good at sales. I'm good at being an ambassador for the business. But I couldn't, even though I wanted to do that stuff, I couldn't start doing that stuff because otherwise certain things wouldn't happen. So you kind of, you do start to feel your way through. And even over the last 2 or 3 years, chatting to my chairman the other day, he was like, the job that you do now is not the job that you were doing 3 years ago. You've evolved and you've changed with the business. And I don't know, like we're complimenting ourselves, but I do think we should a little bit. Like that's a hell of a thing to give up that control that you for me, the whole reason I started the business was to have control. I don't want to be told what to do by people that don't know what they're doing, right? It's not a meritocracy out there. Sorry, it's just not, especially in a big company. You put any large social group together, there are social dynamics at play that as a young man, a woman, whatever, you just couldn't possibly begin to understand, But I knew that the game was rigged. So like for me, I'm going to go and work in an area that I'm going to specialize in. And he's a bit of a funny one, but the guy that made Dilbert, Scott Adams, he talked about having like 2 spheres of confidence, if you like, that overlap, and they're a multiplier. So sounds similar, really. Computer science, my background too. I didn't study it, but I was into IT big time, taught myself to code. And I'm good at sales, got the gab. So no one can compete. Like someone will be a better sales guy than me, and there's definitely better programmers than me. But there aren't people out there. But and that's just Scott.
It's find your niche, isn't it? It's find your differential as much as anything.
Yeah.
Not to go back to the cheesy, but it is, isn't it? It's to find the thing that you're most likely to win at.
Ideally, and if that can
it's
be
not ballroom dancing.
No.
It's not,
it's not the 100-meter sprint.
100 meters, no, exactly.
I'm built for comfort, not
play,
selling software named after Russian jet fighters. That's
all
what
day
it
long.
is.
All day
That's
long.
what it is.
Yeah, right.
So look, let's broaden out since we've started with the companies. What's FundApps' secret sauce? Why is it winning? How are you beating the big boys?
Um, Shocker! Stop the press. There is no secret sauce. Otherwise, you distill it and sell it and become a billionaire. I really think that the one bit of advice I do try and give people is just the showing up every day element.
Right.
Which again, going back to the kind of modern society, and I'm not on Instagram or any of those, but I've heard, and I don't have children either, but I heard like the mental anguish they cause because people are comparing themselves to others, and everything, even on LinkedIn, is instant success, and click here to find out how to start a business, and click here how to find the first million, and click here how to be gorgeous. So there's so much stuff that sounds like you can, within a few weeks or months or even a year, become X or Y. And there's classical books that prove this otherwise. 80,000 hours, etc. is like, to be good at anything from cooking to chess to tennis to running a business takes a lot of bloody time. And I think again that the VC model and the 4-year, 5-year cycle also kind of incentivizes people to only think about that time frame. I'm in business now 14 years as of September, and we're probably starting to get success now. I mean, probably others would say it was slightly earlier, but it just is starting to click now. And that's for most people, if you're to say to a 22-year-old, like, yeah, you're going to be 36 by the time you feel successful, they're like, no thanks, I want another route, please. So long story short, there is I do think that showing up every day and focus as well. I think that's a classic one that the red dots on your phone and everything, your focus is all over the place. And certainly I know classical wife test of when I ask her what do you think I do well, other than nothing, she'll tell me probably focus. That if I'm given a problem, I will sit down and just work at it, and I'm methodical, and we'll carry on. And that was it. Like we didn't take any funding. I'm very happy about that decision, going back to Simon there, and not having somebody to tell you what to do. I think that's the weirdest thing about entrepreneurs, is they leave a company or they leave whatever, and then they're suddenly in charge of their own destiny, and within a year or two they've got VCs on board that are kind of telling them what to do. But so we didn't take any funding, and that led to kind of a slow organic growth. I had maybe not a hockey stick, but certainly a lovely inflection point about 3, 4, 5 years in, where we went from 2 clients to 4 to 10 to 20 to 30, and then he started to get into the thing, and now we're on roughly 160 clients globally. So it's really
That's
kind
massive.
of hit that. Yeah, it's a good client base. So, but yeah, 14. My favorite quote is a friend in Dublin, a company called FundApps, and they say I'm a 14-year overnight success.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it is that thing. If you're just to look at LinkedIn and you see the stats, wow, those guys have done well, but you don't realize the amount of hours of work that have gone to make that.
I don't. You're right. On LinkedIn is often the social news of the market of choice, isn't it? But I do. I guess I become the grumpy old man when I sit. No, but when you see that, the applauding of what are quite little successes in such a big way, and the need to overachieve really quickly, it doesn't work. I don't think in over the long run.
I know it just creates false expectations.
I think
that doing your day job on XK a year is not good enough, that you should be either on 2XK or senior this or that, or that you should be working for a cooler company. And you know what? Sometimes people are actually just happy doing a good job. And this kind of, you look at LinkedIn or whatever, it's Instagram, and you're like, God, I'm doing everything wrong. I need to be 10 pounds lighter, working in a cooler company, married to somebody else. And, like this kind of classical, which is basically advertising, to quote Bill Hicks, the advertising a different life is the best way to make money for companies. So, it's their incentive to tell you should be doing something different, because the same doesn't make any money.
But I almost think that the 2 metrics that always impress me about companies, and your both of yours included, is the number of clients that you service and work with, because that's a clear indication of output and a measure of success. And then the team that you work with, the size of the team. In some senses, and it's not strictly true, obviously, you've always got to be a going concern, but the revenue numbers and the profitability and all of that is a byproduct of getting those first 2 things right, isn't it? That's how many clients have you got now, Simon?
We're knocking on 30, so nowhere near to the hundreds. But yeah, definitely, it's. I think as the MD, they're the 2 main things you think about, right? Are keeping clients happy, and then looking after the staff. They're 2 halves of the same. If your staff are miserable, your clients get a bad experience. If you're underserving your clients, you create bad experiences for your staff. So either way that vicious cycle starts, it will compound. So yeah, it's you're right, it does generally lead to revenue, but I think you've still got to have the focus that Andrew's talking about around sales, like just dogmatic. When we were accepted into that IA Engine accelerator, they gave me a list of 30 asset managers to You've never seen somebody chew through a spreadsheet of leads. Like, you lot all voted for me, let's go. I don't want to sell to you, I just want to talk to you. It sounds threatening like that, but it really, and I said to myself, if they're not bored of seeing my name in their inbox or hearing my voice on LinkedIn, because Leanne and I did a load of LinkedIn stuff during lockdown and blah, 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 then I'm not maximizing the upside of this opportunity. You're focused to the point of sometimes Lee will tell you I'm rude. Like, if I'm locked in on something, I was on the train, I was doing some infosec nonsense, but it's got to be done.
Yes.
And so I'm filling this thing out. She asked me a question. I'm no. like every now and then I can still turn that on. I'm not like that all the time, thank God, because it's exhausting. But when I see something that needs to be sorted, it's like bang, and you go and get it,
So given that you started up single-minded, you understood, or at least you had a problem in your head, something to fix, or something that you could do better than anyone else that you saw, and that's always a relative point. What's wrong in the industry now that you should be either looking at as your firm, but what rankles you about the industry? What's going wrong and you think is... it may be too broad a question, Andrew, but I'm just interested. Pick maybe just one or two rather than seven.
I'm letting Andrew go first.
I'm generally an optimist. I don't think you can be a pessimist and start a company. I think the one, we haven't actually mentioned the words AI so far, so well done, chaps. I'm sure it's coming. But, and people talk about AI and disruption and all that kind of stuff. But I did say, though, the one thing that consistently, especially if we're talking about the banks and the asset managers, et cetera, the one thing that I consistently see go wrong, or that I would wave my magic fairy wand, is improving the risk-reward relationship in financial institutions or any large institutions. And what that is simply Simon and myself, we start a company separately or differently, and we take a risk and it succeeds. Fingers crossed, we might be millionaires, happy days. We fail, you know what? I've got a great story for LinkedIn. I'm going to get kudos, fail fast, high fives for all my startup friends. You go into a financial institution, you take a risk, doesn't work out, you might get fired, you might get told you're not taking any decisions anymore. And if it does work out, a little pat on the back, maybe a little discretionary bonus end of year. So that the risk reward relationship from startups or young companies versus old companies or established companies is so wrong. It's like, I get it, there is more duty of care there about protecting people's money and things like that, but there's still so much opportunity for these institutions to take more calculated risks, and it's improving, but it used to be terrible, the idea.
So you're saying it's narrow in both directions? Is that what you mean?
The opposite. In startup world, you take a punt and it works out. The upside is amazing. The downside is minimal. In a financial institution, the upside is minimal and downside is huge. So yeah, I guess it is inverse. Okay.
So it's asymmetric on both accounts.
Asymmetric,
okay.
Yeah. Risk reward relationships, and I'm sure Simon has seen a few of these. People set up innovation teams or innovation departments, which I find a bit of a joke, because like, you cannot put the people that are going to innovate in a room together and go innovate. And then they come up with the classic, we've found this thing, and they go to the people whose day job it is to implement it. And they're already too busy doing their day job, or they don't want it, or there's no incentive for them to take it on. The classic thing of people taking on new technologies that could put them out of a job as well, which is always a difficult pitch. Like, here's this thing that is going to make your day a lot easier, which, they're in the back of their heads thinking, well, that puts me out of a job. So this innovation, trying to put innovation in companies, and there's some part of people that do choose to work for larger institutions might have a lower risk appetite, etc. But I think to really, and maybe to adopt AI and things like that, there will be a need for larger institutions to think more, to have more of a risk appetite.
But do you think that, and I'm almost harkening back to your comments around Japan about culture. So the culture of large institutions is such that everybody in that business is paid whatever their salary is paid to optimize, and I use that word broadly, the current business model.
True.
That's what they're paid to do.
Very true.
The only way you're going to evolve or change, ideally, is either you get 5% of their salary, their time, their resources dedicated to evolution, innovation, whatever the word is, or you set up a crack team, a SWAT team, a skunk works over in the corner to try and influence, or entice others to be thinking the same. How else do you do it?
If I had a solution, I'd have already sold FundApps and gone as a consultant to large institutions. There's obviously no simple solution. I think, that there's small iterative steps that, it's the classic, I've forgotten the Japanese name for it, but the Toyota suggestion box.
Kaizen, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That you say, well, okay, you guys do the job every day of the week. How about you come up with the good ideas rather than highly paid managers sit there and kind of work out what's best for the company? And there's, people do that in various forms, but it still could be done a lot better. Like, I've seen the classic thing of people seeing technology, and people that normally find FundApps at least are probably doing the day job, and they Google automated shareholding disclosure or automation of, and they find us, and then hey boss, this would make my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
But bosses focused on their numbers or their budget spreads or whatever, and improving 10 of their teams' daily lives isn't top of their agenda. And then we come in and say, well, scalability and future proofing and all that kind of stuff, but falls on deaf ears. So I think this kind of creating more of a take feedback from the team and take ideas where they are, and those classically Polaroids, BlackBerry, etc. take that to heart, that those that aren't innovating will go out of business.
Who's done it the best? I'm just Simon. Anybody that you can any large or established.
Obviously, our customers, but
amazing.
No, I'm just wondering if you think anybody's successfully landed innovation or evolution or change or any of this.
In terms of innovation that I'm seeing work for a client,
yes,
is where, do you know what? They do struggle to innovate internally. They absolutely do. It's square peg round hole territory, right? The incentives aren't lined up properly, per your point just now. Right. Even if you separate me out into an innovation thing, what does the success of that look like? And how do I bring that back into the main?
Is it number of ideas? Is it
right, lines of code? How are we measuring
number of post-its?
Yeah, right. It's just it doesn't work. So I think, but there is another form of innovation, which arguably is what we're punting in our day jobs, which is you can buy the innovation in the form of buying in a fintech. So when we talk to our clients about the technology, we're like, to be honest with you, the tech's kind of boring. Like, just assume the technology is good. Mm-hmm. Really, what you're buying is the other 30 odd firms that have implemented this, and all of the lessons that we've learned from doing that, and all the IP that we've built in this thing that you're now going to benefit from, literally day one.
Yes.
And so it unlocks a number of potential benefits straight away without you lot having to sit around and scratch your heads. Now, there is that thing, I think we were saying at the last podcast, that the stuff we do is boring, and you were like, no, you mean exciting. I mean fundamental, if I'm honest, maybe not boring. But is that truly innovation, or is that just backfilling an old problem, actually? So then define innovation, right? Because for me, they're being innovative by taking our solutions on, because it automates some part and de-risk them and blah, blah, blah. But is what we've built, as technologists, could we really sit here and go, our products, they're an innovative solution to an old problem, data management in my case, and disclosure in Andrew's. But there's so much more innovation that could be happening, dare I say, around the AI.
So you're, that brings up an interesting point, isn't it? That you're in ATA reg tech, self-start or otherwise. By that definition of innovate, can you even innovate, or are you just at the mercy of the regulator? Because until they make any changes, well, you're then just improving the efficiency of an old model.
Yeah, and that's really funny that Simon said, because I have said, like, when people said, what's the next big thing? And I was like, actually, you know what? Just day by day, gradual innovation is, it's kind of the story of humanity. Sure, we remember the electricity. Well, I don't remember electricity, but, we remember the wheel and the electricity.
Pre-internet.
But, there
Yeah.
are,
Oh, yeah.
like, things every day that humanity does very well about improving things. So I think there's, just
Well, we've already
basics.
worked out that in terms of great next big thing, we need to ask your mother, not you, about what's coming up next.
Ask Mom
So
about the next.
We'll go for the incremental with you,
Exactly.
Andrew,
So
if that's
I
okay.
think that, that's nothing to be sneezed at. The kind of just people having a little, trying things out, being incentivized that it doesn't have to be a big bang. AI is going to take all our jobs. So I think and back to that point, I really do. Maybe that is, to the flip side of things that are working well. That, since we've been in business, the very first few years, we had the classic show us 3 years accounts.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
have to have at least 10 customers to talk to us and blah, 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 which, okay, we got to at some stage, but it was tough work. Whereas nowadays, I do see newer startups coming along, and banks and hedge funds certainly are more comfortable with, well, your technology's kind of, we can see it works. Let's do a 6 month, risk free, blah, blah, blah. Try it out. If it works, happy days. We'll do some kind of contract. So there is definitely more risk appetite there. And I think the classic thing, I'm sure Simon's seen this, is, really used to do my head in, was this kind of banks building their own software. And I get it for trading or things that are really your secret sauce, and, things that can generate you alpha, then knock yourself out, get the brightest developers and put them in a room and work on your trading strategies. But 90% of what a bank does isn't secret sauce. It is the compliance, the reporting, the risk, the just doing
all
the day job, all the
processing.
processes.
Yeah.
So, and for years they'd still, and I think that was probably just a matter of time, that for years, banks did have the best developers and they had the most money and they were able to hire the brightest grads and make them do software. And the software companies didn't exist, like what we didn't exist 14 years ago. So they got in a bit of a, on the mindset of the CTOs and CIOs that are in place now. What probably was, well, there's going to be nothing out there. We'll build this ourselves. Whereas certainly over the last 10 years, there's a solution pretty much for everything. You want a CRM? Come on, joking me. I mean, if you'd build your own CRM now, help desk. I mean, we built a help desk in our old company in 2001. We were like, we need to store customer tickets and do this and send emails. Zendesk didn't exist. So we as a software company, even then I was like, this seems a bit risky. So this idea that, really to Simon's point, that there are experts out there, and that's what we kind of pride ourselves on. We've been in this for 14 years. We have 135 people. We breathe this every day. We've had all the false assumptions you've made. We've had all the wrong information, and that, especially in compliance, which really is our USP. This compliance is not a game where you get a gold star for doing it better than anybody else. You just have to do it and do it correctly. So the idea that anybody should be doing compliance on their own in a spreadsheet where some hungover junior developer built the algorithms on a Friday morning and then they head off as soon as they get a better job and you're left with a spreadsheet. Like, this
want to use your hungover.
Yeah, well, my hungover, our coders don't drink. But that idea of strength in numbers, let's create and collaboration on a best practice of how to do compliance in these institutions.
So if you accidentally chanced upon your next big thing, which is actually I think technology now allows you to be modular, federated, to be much more plug and play, to bring in expertise in those different areas. And surely the business models of many financial institutions should shrink to be the one thing or the three things that they're really good at. Outsource the rest. And I'm using outsourcing, and again, it's a horribly laden term, but is that? I might be contentious, but I have said at various conferences, bankers should bank, software companies should build software, and hosters should host. But up until recently, bankers were building software and hosting themselves. And like Amazon comes along and they do this 100 times better than anybody else. The idea that you should have a server room and think that you're doing a good job of it, or you can build software. I mean, I had even back to the talent thing, I was at a recruitment fair event in Imperial College earlier this year, and it was the global head of talent acquisition for one of the investment banks, and they were nearly crying into their tea that they couldn't get any developers nowadays or any techies because they were all going off to work in Meta and Google or startups, and here was esports.
Exactly. And he's running an investment bank, and they're struggling to hire. So this talent deficit is real, and everybody's fighting for it. So let's not all, if every single financial institution is trying to hire people to build the same same thing. That just cries out for optimization.
I was really struck by I went to the Snowflake conference or event at the Excel Center, and whether you like Snowflake or not, or whether Databricks is better or any other version for that matter, it just struck me that the level of intensity around data that Snowflake has. And yes, there was lots of razzmatazz. They had a death slide, for goodness sake. They had one of those grabby claws with Snowflake teddies on. It was, okay, that's ridiculous and crazy, but, the young ones love it. I say, I'm just dating myself. However, I didn't go on the death slide. I'd have hurt my pelvis. No, but the thing is, it's just the level of data intensity and the expertise around data far outstripped any financial institution I'd ever spoken to. Yeah. So why try?
Well, the idea that you can build up the knowledge and expertise and, every institution's trying to do the same is like, it screams out for like those utility services that do this very well. And that's what they do. And, we've known this for years. Well, most of us have known this for years in our private lives. Like I don't do DIY. Sorry if you guys do, but like there's a builder there that does this for a living. Yeah. Plumber. Before I get my head underneath there and get the wrench out, I'll call somebody to do it. But it's basically banks have all got their own set of plumbers and electricians and builders on site just in case they need to do something. So outsource
it. Industry utilities. So when are we going to see FundAppspedia?
we
that seems to roll off the tongue better than any other version. I just
not bad.
Not bad.
No, we do. Like we are. I think our kind of vision is doing compliance correctly.
Yes.
We're there. We're the good guys of the industry. We're stopping people making mistakes and screwing over grandma's pension. So the idea that if everybody gets together, because regulators are classically a bit fuzzy, that they issue statements that are kind of open to interpretation. So principles based, exactly. As an industry, how about we decide how to interpret this, best practice, put a bit of information, we all have a different view on this, and then do it the same way across things. Going back to my hungover developer on a Friday morning, like let's do it once together and then, decide this sounds like the best interpretation of this advice rather than everybody doing themselves. So I think, utilities for a lot of the things, whether it's reporting, compliance, makes so much sense rather than everybody doing it their own way. It's like if everybody built their own speedometer or, their judgment of what 60 miles an hour was different. So I think you're only doing 52. You think you're doing 68. Now, there's a reason speedometers are calibrated by institutions to make sure it's correct. Like the same thing, we should all agree what 60 miles an hour is.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And obviously, in a roundabout way, the firms, by doing that, are almost unionizing in this weird, it's a horrible analogy.
Explain. What do you mean?
Well, from the point of view that if you've got 30, 40, 50, 100 companies all using, I'm going to pick on BlackRock, Aladdin, right?
Okay, yeah.
And something's not quite right in
They're
BlackRock,
big enough.
right? So like, sorry, we bought this software on good faith. So the liability for this now sits with BlackRock, Aladdin. It doesn't, especially the FCA are going to go after all the firms that were using incorrect software? Probably not. It's going to be a thing that gets fixed and you're all going to move on from it. And whereas if you built your own BlackRock, Aladdin, now all of that liability sits within you, right? Like you're totally on the hook for it. Now, obviously, it doesn't work like that. Firms can't just say we bought the software in, especially with DORA and and therefore we've outsourced our liability too. But there are definitely the guardrails that Andrew was mentioning. Like if everybody's interpreted the statement from the FCA on whatever it might be as this, and they're all using the same software to deliver the outcomes for that, then aren't we there's a union of understanding, if nothing else, that this was the solution for it, and chances are it's right. We can't all be wrong.
What's the numbers?
Yeah, right.
But I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? About if you get a utility or a number of participants working and using the same system, when who does bear the responsibility? I think at some point, if you want to get a real industry utility, shouldn't that start to bear responsibility as well? You know what I mean? There'd be a time when you go, well, because they've got so much body of knowledge or so much capability, etc. It's exactly the same as Schroders outsourcing too. Name your large outsource provider in the middle office. They do take responsibility based on an SLA, etc., etc. So I think I don't think it's unnatural to think that utility over time may in fact start to bear more responsibility than just my contractual terms.
Perhaps don't want to be regulated, but sometimes wonder why we're not. Like I feel like I sometimes sit there and I'm filling out all the InfoSec stuff or whatever, and I'm like, could be worse, could be regulated. Like, you poor guys having to ask all of these questions just to meet your bits and pieces. And does it actually add any business value to you? I actually think the whole procurement process could be a utility too. I genuinely believe that there should be a badge. And if Andrew's got a gold badge and I've got a gold badge, you know exactly where you stand with both of us. Right?
So I think we might have talked about this before in the IA as well, but the amount of hoops that we have to jump through nowadays, it was already bad 10 years ago, or, strict.
It's got worse, yeah?
It's got much worse, or better maybe if you're in the sense of more questions are answered, but like the classic thing, InfoSec's a classic, we were both SOC 2 and ISO as well, like we, previously wouldn't have thought about either, and then we got one, and now, classically one client as well, we need SOC 2, and you're like, okay, we'll do SOC 2 as well. But then, a whole raft of other things, and then your software development process needs to comply with certain processes, and your software development process needs to have all kinds of vulnerability detection, and, all these things that, it's quite, and, the RFPs nowadays ask for all these things. And I really like the idea that, and I think there is a lot of vaporware out there. I said it to people, it's never been so easy to create software. You create yourself an Amazon account, you write your little Python script, you upload it, you can go and put a little UI on it, probably get it all done by AI, and then you walk in, you put the suit on and go and demo it. And people are like, oh, that's pretty cool. But like, how do they know that you're going to stick around, that the software does what it wants? So I would also struggle as an investment manager making procurement decisions now. Like, how do I judge the charlatans from those that are, the certain things like number of clients or whatever? But it's hard to judge, what really is true without doing an RFP, which we both know makes no sense because you ask silly questions that don't pertain to the product.
Well, given that the two of your overnight successes of 15, 20 years, whatever the numbers are, how much have you used smaller fintechs to derive your? Are you eating your own dog food or not? Or you just sideline critics and telling you the big boys should do it, and then you're not doing it yourself?
We definitely we use loads of vendors. I mean, I would imagine Simon does the same, but like from HR, I was a bit of a purist at the beginning. Like I was, I'm not using Excel. The whole raison d'etre of us is that most of our prospects think they can do compliance in Excel. So if I were to use Excel, so basically from day one, we used a CRM rather than Excel for outreach.
No wonder your financial planning was so bad.
Yeah, exactly. So we used for applicant tracking as well. We subscribed to an ATS early days rather than using Excel.
Yeah.
So we've always had a high appetite for other vendors as well. And, holding them to a high standard as well, and Zendesk and Intercom for ticketing, and GitHub for source control. So I think, we definitely dog food it, whether they're small or not. But I definitely know, for example, we changed our SOC 2 or ISO provider this year from one of the big four to a smallish company that had really cool tech, and they did a much better job for a quarter of the price. I mean, classic.
Yeah. Same, whether it's pen testing, which is now delivered as a service, so we don't get pen tested annually anymore. It's like weekly, daily if we want. HR software, we used to write our own. We actually sold that as a separate business when I was back running too many businesses. I was like, I'm going to start my own HR software company. I was about as on it as Andrew just described, just like systems for everything, right? I don't want to see documents, like just from a good operational, resilience point of view, not even a purist. I still have lots of spreadsheets, but I was like, well, there could be a system. And back in 2012,
it's reporting, isn't it? Your dashboard to just work out how everything is. It all working?
Yeah, but I shouldn't really admit this, but the guts of my business is still a cash flow spreadsheet, a Google document, because we used to use Google Docs, and I've never even bothered to move it off of it. That is my cash flow forecast, and it is the document that I use to take the pulse of the business. I get all this MI reporting out of my accountants, I get all this MI reporting out of Xero.
Cash flow.
And I've just got this janky old spreadsheet that my poor old bookkeeper has to keep up to date for me. And I know that so long as the number at the bottom is above zero, the heartbeat of the business continues. And you know what? I don't even need to look at it anymore. It isn't even actually, but there's just something comforting about knowing that is there.
Have you got something?
Well, that was remind me. I did have that up until X years ago, but the moment where the number being above zero was no longer. I'm not even going to check the spreadsheet this month.
Yeah.
That was a real highlight of my life. It was like, because I had the calculations. Presume you lose 10% of your clients and how much runway in this, and then suddenly, the spreadsheet, the revenue went like that and costs went like that. But no, we all have that spreadsheet somewhere.
Is that when you knew you've made it? When you don't have to check the zero
I think when
number.
you don't have to check your cash flow or your runway anymore. That say made it, but certainly you're in a different phase now.
You see, there's a future for both of us, Simon. You see,
I think so, man.
Checking the zero balance.
Thank God.
I've got a couple of questions to round things up. I think we talked about what works well, etc., across the industry, what works badly. I'm just thinking, is there a common misconception across the industry? Is there or even more personally, like an awful piece of advice you've been given by chairman, friends, or otherwise across the industry that you'd like to shine a light on?
Debunk.
Yes, debunk.
I think one misconception, maybe for those younger viewers, is that, going back to a bit what I said about hiring, is that financial services, they have the creme de la creme of IT and people. And, we've got a lot of smart techies that left university and then they have to get on a call with even a smaller mid-sized hedge fund to explain how to connect to our API. And the person at the other end who might have been at the bank for 10 years doesn't know how to call an API. Or you say, like, we accept XML as a file format, and they're like, oh, we don't have the capability to do XML. And it's just a file format. So you get these young kids going, but these are the biggest financial companies in the world, and they don't have people that know this. And you kind of have to explain, well, it's not their fault. They've never had to do it before. They work with internal systems that don't have APIs and XML. But you see this person like, but I thought these guys, they were going to be the titans, titans at the gates of dawn. They were just going to be the best out there. So that kind of, if you do think about getting into financial services, other than maybe some of the smaller hedge funds, you probably are going to deal with a lot of brownfield, a lot of old code, a lot of COBOL, a lot of stuff that, is definitely nowhere near edge, let alone cutting edge. So I think that's definitely one misconception about financial services. They pay so well that they have the shiny tools.
So don't believe the hype.
Definitely don't believe the hype.
Yeah.
Simon, anything?
Well, it's funny. Andrew's is oddly aligned with what I was going to say, which is, but same thing, but slightly different angle. When I started Fundapedia, we made a few sales, but then around the 2010s, 11s, it was hard to sell, right? Just couldn't get it. And that's why I started the HR company and got distracted. Mm-hmm. But then I met my chairman and he kind of said, look, just so you know, everyone's winging it, everyone's blagging it, right? I've been in financial services all my life. We're all making it up as we go along. He said, if you've managed to get these 3 or 4 clients at the outset and you don't really know why, you've probably incorrectly assumed that the rest of them have just got it all sorted. Let me assure you they haven't. It's a mess out here, right? There's so many legacy, brownfield, whatever, it's like Chernobyl, right? Just a disaster zone. So don't assume that from the outside looking in, financial services is all like, bowls and skills and like everyone's happy and it's all just amazing. It's a mess and there's lots of problems to solve. And it took him telling me that to, wake me up to the fact that, yes, there's legacy systems, there's people working in legacy ways that you would love to see transformed overnight. But those, as bad as they might be to go and work in those institutions, to people like us who want to sit on the outside servicing them, there's so much opportunity. Like we just come up with another business idea. There's so many opportunities to fix things still, even in 2024. So maybe don't go and work directly for them to try and make change. Back to the innovation thing. You're probably not going to innovate from the inside out, but you probably can innovate from the outside in if you don't mind doing the hard graft that Andrew was talking about.
It does align. I sometimes think that those wonderful talk about transformation, it might just be too hard to do.
It is.
You might just go, leave that business model as it is, optimize the hell out of it, and build the new.
Yeah.
And then the next version, just have that steady line, building the culture to do that.
I was talking to a Canadian institution recently and they were replacing 5 systems with 2 systems and normally sounds like just replace and turn off and turn on.
But it's a nightmare, isn't it?
They were projecting five years of work and don't know how many hundreds of consultants and hours, and that was like, I don't know what the the advantage was or what their ROI was, but in essence, they're going to have just less systems that are slightly better, but they're not going to radically make the business 20 times more efficient or profitable. And I was like, wow, that really is the problem of large institutions. They've got all this much legacy that they have to keep going or change one out for another in and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, to your point, that there is the opportunity there, and I think smart solutions that help people do that will always be popular.
But you got to focus on the demand, not the supply, right? It's far too easy to just knock up a bit of software, then sit in your bedroom and hope the phone's going to ring, right? It doesn't work like that.
Well, I guess the other, if you say there's a lot of things to improve, there's also, frankly, there's a lot of things just to keep busy at, and therefore hide and just, I've got a program of work for the next 5 years. What's the outcome? Don't worry about that. Look at all the jobs I've got to do. And I think there's a lot of that, isn't it? I do think so. But I was going to ask you quickly about the industries. It's just, I find it interesting that, at least when I grew up, I think that a lot of the smart, let's say top quartile people, financial services is one of the big draws, maybe even more so than engineering or, aerospace. And yet, I almost think that if the people were running financial services were running the planes, I think we'd have a lot more accidents. I don't know why is it that smarter people in financial services haven't figured this out? Is it I don't understand culturally why that hasn't improved by the same rate.
Well, I think there is a classic thing there. Wherever money's in play, there are incentives to do naughty things. And there's a nice Wikipedia page that I share with new joiners about the history of financial scandals on Wikipedia, right. And it's, I think, 200 elements long. Going through the Medicis to Madoff to whoever else, Lehman Brothers, etc. So there's a lot of perverse incentives from and we're talking about the institutions in general, and not just traders or compliance. So I think cutting corners. If I cut this corner, I might see upside of 100 million or 5% or 3 basis points, whatever it may be, versus in aerospace or any of those cutting corners, what the potential out there is. So like classical ROI, maybe one time it does work for these institutions. Cut corner, do something slightly this, it might make a lot of money on the top. Downside, I might get caught. So, and of course, that's the classic thing that regulators were always seen as, the boring kind of, I don't know if you've seen Billions, but the regulator is never going to catch me. I'll skirt around the peripheries of legal. So saying not that any institution does this regularly, but there's always this kind of gray area. So I think
allegedly,
allegedly, exactly. There's some shall we say, mindset around, and certainly, I think older generations as well. We both, have a lot of the younger generations at work, but when they don't realize that somebody who's been in a bank for 50 or 60 years might think slightly differently about what good looks like and whatever. And I've seen the Enron CFO speak and do the classic, what I did wasn't wrong at the time, or everybody else was doing it. So things have changed over the years.
So last question I'll end with is almost squaring that circle, going all the way back to the beginning. Talking about a new starter coming into this industry, and you're an experienced professional, been there and done that, traveled all over the place, etc. What's the one piece of advice you'd give that new entrant to either your firm or to a Swiss private bank?
I really do think it is to be prepared for the long term. I think the classic Rome wasn't built in a day. It's an old saying, but the true, the Facebooks of this world, it might sound new, but it's also been around for 15 years. Microsoft, Apple, all those companies, they might seem like tech giants, but they've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
And I think, going back to the Japanese thing, it really is get good at what you do. I think there's no better feeling about knowing what, being uncomfortable is good too, outside your comfort zone, but being good at what you do and enjoying it, and being in the moment of, I'm creating something, I'm selling something that's of value to people, and that's a nice feeling. And I think people always task about the bootstrapping versus VC funding, and there's the kind of classic, I like to climb mountains, not huge ones, but the kind of, the Everest metaphor. You could just hire a helicopter to put you on the top of Everest. It's going to cost a lot of money, and you can put it down on your CV, but it's probably not going to be that much fun, or you're not going to feel that excited about it. Second down, you could hire a crack team of paratroopers to kind of carry you up and, do it.
That does sound fun.
That does sound fun. Or, you can hire a team of decent people, train together, work hard together, start from Kathmandu and walk there and then climb the mountain together. And there's something about those achieving things as a team, teamwork, that kind of feeling of success as a team, and enjoying that, and not this individual Instagram. I keep on going back to view of me, but thinking about how we can achieve as a team, and really looking forward for that team that you can achieve that with, and then spending a bit of time doing it together, getting better at what you do, and then one day you get to the top, and oh my God, I'd say that feeling is 100 times better than just getting dropped on the top. So long story short, yeah, enjoy the ride. You're going to be in a while where retirement ages will keep on going up. So get good at what you do. Or just strike it lucky and retire. But no, I'd say yeah, enjoy what you do is most important.
I guess there's a lot of pleasure in that that collective journey, isn't there?
Yeah, it's massive. Every success is the team success. And you don't think about yourself, and you don't have the classical egotist. Yeah, it's my work. It's like literally it is the team's work that got you there.
They are the best moments, aren't they? Simon, you have shared successes, don't you, throughout your career, and those are the times you remember, I think.
I think so. Those, janky sessions where you're like 3 laptops on a train,
yes.
trying to get a release up, or trying to get that RFP in at like 11:59.
Yes.
And, those pizza nights, whatever you want to call it. It is
the internet's down.
Yeah, right. The troughs that you only look back on, from the peaks that you then hopefully,
I remember sending a very large proposal to a bank from a pub in Edinburgh, because that was the only place we could find Wi-Fi about 10 years ago. Right. And we sat there with a soft drink, of course.
Yeah.
It might have been black soft drink, but it was sending a proposal there. We're in a pub and everybody around us was busy, but we were just focused on the job, and we still talk about that 10 years later. Remember that proposal we said, and we won the deal as well. So
there you go. Right. So it is.
So we need to leverage experts.
Yeah.
We need to think of it as a team. Mm-hmm. We need to encourage the new joiners to tell them, actually, you'll be working for 500 years, it'll be fine. But it'll all come good in the end.
Yeah. Enjoy it.
Patience is key. And something about Japan.
Get good at what you do.
And celebrate robustness. I think there's a lot to be said for being robust.
Yeah.
And just not letting things get on top of you.
That's very true. Yeah. There's a high tendency for high performers and highly educated, highly intelligent people to get, from the first sign of failure or thing that didn't work out, to get kind of, oh my God, that didn't work out. That's never happened to me before.
Yeah.
Whereas my background was I was always getting kicked around and nothing went well for me. So I was like, oh, that didn't work out. That sale didn't work out. That software release didn't work out. You just dust yourself off and get back on the horse. Not a problem.
Personal resilience, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. Grit.
Dora for the individual.
Pretty much, yeah. Nice one.
Yeah, like that.
You can use that.
Nice.
Anyway, thank you very much for the conversation, gentlemen.
Yeah,
it's been very enlightening. No fisticuffs this time, but I think...
it's far too amicable. The next one will have some black stuff, not coffee.
Let's do that. Thank you very much, gents.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.